All right, hello and welcome. Today we are starting our discussion of literary analysis. And so I am going to just kind of go over what I have posted in Google Classroom for you and kind of explain it a little bit. All right. Okay, so just as a first things first, all of the assignments for the remaining parts of the year, which we've got 16 days until winter break, is all for SHS credit as Bethel credit is done. This is a great opportunity for you to boost your grade and get it as close to 100 as possible, which is fantastic for your GPA. The main reason that I'm doing this is that everybody can use a GPA boost. Nobody had a perfect grade in dual enrollment. And then secondly, it is a great chance for anyone who needs to do grade or credit recovery. It gives them a chance of having to not have to redo assignments, but have some new assignments come in and boost their grade for them. I am going to stress to you that it is, however, optional. So if you do not want to do the assignments, I can't make you do the assignments. I encourage you to do the assignments because they are going to help prepare you for literary analysis. And how it's going to work is a little bit like this. So for the next 3 weeks, I will start class. The first 15 minutes, I will say, hey, here is the reading for today. I'd like for you to go ahead and read that. If you are participating in our Zoom calls, I want for you to do the reading before you come into the Zoom call, just so that you will be prepared for the class discussion. And everything should be definitely doable to read in 15 minutes. Everybody get the reading done in class today? Get that done? Okay. So it won't ever be like War and Peace. You need to read 1,000 pages and get this done. Okay. Then I'm going to give you a little mini lesson on the skill that we are learning about. Okay. So for today, we are talking about facts versus analysis and moving into an analytical summary writing. Okay. We'll discuss the text and skill. Then I'm going to give you a short assignment where you're going to be able to practice that skill. That is what you are going to turn in to earn a completion grade of a 100 classwork grade for having completed that activity. The goal is this is going to take you about 45 minutes. So if you're at home with us, that's about how much time that you need to carve out. And that includes the reading time. So about 45 minutes. I will go live each day. I'll post a schedule. My schedule for this week is posted in Google Classroom. And then I will post next week's schedule because we'll go back to the normal schedule, which will be Monday or Tuesdays, and Fridays are even days. On Wednesday, we will not be doing anything in dual enrollment. So if you are at home, you will need to do that Zoom call check-in with me for your attendance grade. That's required for all of our students to make sure that everybody is just checking in. And I know that you're live, that I can see your names in the little black boxes. But if you're on campus with us, then those days, those are just going to be your 37 minutes of whatever time that you need them to be. All right. So Andrew, hi, I see that you're with us. I'm going to be talking about the reading. So if you have not read, then just play along and follow along. Or you are also welcome to watch this later, since this was introducing the concept to you. You might not have got a chance to know that you need to read before, since I just stated that. So it's totally up to you. I will be posting the video after. So let's talk about what we read. We read the first chapter of Skipping Christmas. So what did you guys think? What do you think about the tone?
I can kind of sympathize with it.
Okay, you can sympathize with Luther?
Yeah.
Okay, why can you sympathize with Luther?
Because I kind of hate the same things with the crowds, the meaningless stuff that, you know.
So the things that we think of that are irritating about the holiday season, in terms of like, being super busy, people everywhere, people kind of being greedy, spending lots of money, pumpkin pie, those things, right? Okay, so you can kind of sympathize. What other responses do you have?
It seems like a person who's antisocial is like their nightmare. It's like it's just a bunch of people. Possibly you have to talk to people. Like the mom had to ask the teacher. That seems like something like somebody who has like social anxiety and all of that.
That
That
just,
seems like somebody's nightmare.
Nightmare. Yes,
just
I
like my
agree.
mom going into like someplace like say in those expensive places, like something like Publix, or what's the
Yeah.
other one that's really expensive compared to Publix?
Yeah, okay, so that's a really good point. Like, so Chips to me is like a Publix kind of place, or like Whole Foods.
Whole Foods, that's what I was
You
thinking.
know, like you can go to Kroger and get the exact same thing, but it's like you want to pay more money to go to a smaller store. You know, however, Publix is dreamy. Like they're so nice at Publix. They make me feel like I love to give them my extra money because I feel so
They
nice
also give you
being
free
there.
amoxicillin, so
Do what?
They also give you
Free amoxicillin. I'm allergic to it, so that doesn't really help me.
Oh.
But I am glad for the people who that benefits. Did this seem familiar to anyone? This story? Okay. Have you guys maybe seen the movie that is based off of this story?
What's the movie?
It's Christmas with the Cranks. Has anyone seen that?
Well, the rush and everything, it just reminded me of like how it was at the airport in Home Alone.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So the rush in the airport, and also like, okay, so this is the second year that I've kicked off this part with reading this story. And last year I only did the first chapter, but I'm going a little deeper because the whole thing is really a fun read. We're not going to read the whole thing, but you'll have access to it if you decide that you want to. But I was noticing that even though it's not necessarily set in a pre 9/11 world, it kind of is, because you can't go to the airport gates anymore. Like if you wanted to walk your loved one up to the airport, you can't do that anymore.
TSA.
Yeah, because of the all of the Homeland Security implements. So it kind of like, in some ways, it reminds you of a time that it seems kind of lost, but at the same time, they've got like cell phones that you can call out of planes. So it's not actually like a post 9/11 world. It's just like an idealized world, I guess, in some ways.
I mean, I guess you could say goodbye as a part of the TSA stuff.
Yes. We're not in that kind of world. We are going to watch the preview or the trailer for Christmas with the Cranks, and then we might like the last day watch some of the movie because it's fun to kind of see how the adaptation is. However, I will say that the beginning of the movie and the beginning of the text are very, very similar. And it kind of, the person who plays Luther is Tim Allen, and he is a perfect Luther because you can really get his energy and everything like that from it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about literary analysis. So I mentioned at the start of this class that my students typically see a grade letter fall in the very beginning of literary analysis, because it requires you to think a little bit differently than you've been thinking. And so by going over through these things, I think that it really helps you to strengthen your analytical bone in your brain, okay? Because we all have a summary skill that you've been learning summary since first grade, okay? So being able to summarize a text comes naturally to you. But being able to analytically summarize something or make an analytical argument is a learned skill. Like it's a special skill that takes really kind of honing in and being familiar with the text and knowing how to analyze a text. And that is the skill that we're going to primarily work on as we are together in literature. So today we're going to kind of talk about statements and facts and analysis. We're going to learn the difference between stating facts and analyzing. We're going to learn about summarizing versus an analytical summary. And then I'm going to have you guys write an analytical summary at the end of what we've read. So to begin with, in just a Google document, just open one up. Doesn't matter what. I want for you to brainstorm as many statements that you can make about what you just read, okay? And I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes, and I want you just to generate as many statements as you can make about what you just read. right? So if you were at home, make sure that you had set a little timer for yourself to generate some statements. Now let's talk about those statements a little bit. All right, somebody tell me some statements that they made. It's cold outside. Yes. What else is it?
Chips. Oh,
It's Christmas time. Okay. What's the weather? It's freezing. And what else? And raining. Yes, it's going to snow later. What else? What are some other statements that you made about the text? So a relatable discomfort that Luther feels. Why is that? Is it relatable for you, or do you think it's relatable like in general? Yes. Yes.
It feels like there's growing animosity between the parents.
Okay, talk to me a little bit more about that. Why?
Kind of like how Luther is constantly aggravated by his wife asking if Blair would be okay, and then mad on the fact that he has to go to the store and he can't get home quicker. You know, it just seems like it's building.
Right. There is some building tension, right? Okay. What else did you guys notice? What are some other statements that you wrote?
Relationship seems like a basic relationship back then. Like, you know how like husband and wife, like the wife's like preppy and
Okay, so kind of a basic like husband wife that you would kind of think of in, I mean, well, Christmas movie, right? Like, so he's the irritated husband, she's the over emotional wife, maybe. Okay, what else?
Luther hates Christmas.
Okay, yes, Luther hates Christmas. Okay,
Everything is crowded.
everything is crowded. Yeah, there's like people out on the street crowding around watching people decorate a window when it's raining outside. Like, okay, sure. Not me, but okay. All right, good. Okay, so I have a couple of others that I have in here. It's Christmas time, so we all have that. I also pointed out our main characters. So we've got Luther, Nora, and Blair. That the setting is somewhere cold, which Haley Ann pointed out, or at least someplace that's far from Miami. We can infer that from the text. That Luther is a grouchy Grinch person. That Blair is going to Lima, Peru, that she's 23 and a grad student, that it starts at the airport, that they go home, that Nora's sad because Blair won't be home. Luther's in a bad mood, has a bad attitude. They go to the store to get pistachios and the store is overpriced and crowded. Luther's really concerned about money. He makes several references to money and like how much things cost or why he's irritated about that. It's raining and it might snow later, and then he's happy that it won't be a regular Christmas. So I want you to go back to what you've written, and I want for you to highlight. If you want to use the check mark function, you can, but I want you to highlight statements that are analytical. And I want for you to make an X next to things that are factual. And before we do that, let's talk about the difference between facts or analysis. So a fact is indisputable. That means nobody can make an argument about it. So we can't argue that it is the Sunday after Thanksgiving because the text tells us that. Okay, so things that we pull directly from the text that are facts that the author provides for us. Okay, now you can point to those facts. So they might be a piece of dialogue, it might be a description, it might be an image, it might be a word choice. Okay. Now, analysis requires us to read between the lines and make some interpretations based on the facts. So that's going to analyze and examine the purpose, effect, and meaning of facts in the text. If something's analytical, then that means somebody else could argue against it. So if we say, for example, what Kristen pointed out, this is a relatable discomfort that Luther feels. That's an analytical statement, right? It's not a fact. The author doesn't say, just like everybody feels uncomfortable in these situations, right? You had to read between the lines and analyze that. And somebody could argue with you, right? They could say, well, not everybody does. A lot of people like this kind of stuff. And we could go toe to toe about it, right? And you could pull facts from the text or from other places around you to justify your reading, right? Brooklyn pointed out that they kind of have this basic husband-wife relationship, right? But that's an analysis. That's not a fact, right? It doesn't say, the author doesn't say, just like every typical husband and wife situation. So you see my difference here between facts and analysis? So what I want for you to go back into is I want for you to highlight when you have made an analysis in your list. And then I want for you to put an X when it's a fact. Okay. And I want you to take about 1.5 minutes to do that for me. All right, so working through my statements, the things that I can point out as fact are things like it's Christmas, the main characters, that the setting is cold because it tells us that it's cold. But then I analyzed that it's far from Miami because I have to fly to Miami, right? So you couldn't just drive there. That Luther is a grouchy Grinch person. Now facts, Blair's going to Lima, starts at the airport, Luther and Nora go home. I've inferred that Nora is sad because Blair won't be home. Now, why have I inferred that? It seems pretty clear. It seems like a fact, but why is that analysis? It doesn't straight up say it, right? You have to say she's sad, and here's my proof. She's crying, she's upset, she's distressed. Okay, good. So making summaries, all right? So let's practice making some summary statements versus some analytical statements, okay? So we just talked about all the things that were analytical, things that we had to infer and analyze from the text. To effectively analyze, we have to be able to summarize. So we have to be able to have key facts and events. And like I said before, what we're building on is that we can write an analytical summary, but we have to be able just to write a summary first, okay? So we want to be able to note the facts and events that are going to be important to understanding the author's purpose. So right now, off the bat, what do you guys think this author's purpose is? From chapter 1, what do you think the author's purpose is? What are some possibilities? We can't really know for sure, but what do we think some possibilities are?
It might kind of be like the stereotypical Scrooge kind of like story where at the end it kind of turns into Christmas.
Right. So he might be kind of setting up this whole like classic Scrooge. Luther is our Scroogey Scrooge or Grinch or whatever, fill in the blank right there. And that something's going to happen and cause him to change and become a lover of Christmas. Okay, good. What are some other possible author's purpose? based on what we've read.
You could have like Luther change things around him, so like instead of him changing, like have him do things to accommodate to the Christmas that he would like.
Okay, so maybe Luther could change to create more of a Christmas environment that he would enjoy versus the current Christmas environment, which is classic Christmas, right? It's cold, there's stores, there's shopping, there's decorating in the windows. Okay, good.
The animosity between the parents could go to the point where there's a fight between them.
Right, it could be like a breakup Christmas, right? Like where it could be a story about their relationship, the husband and the wife. The author's purpose might be to tell us that story. Anything else? I think it also could, the author's purpose might be for us to see that maybe Christmas is completely commercial, and maybe maybe we put way too much into this like wonderful time of the year. There definitely is some setup there to offer that argument, right? So depending on what we think the author's purpose is, we still have to think about the facts and the events. And all of our author's purpose that we've discussed, except for the relationship one, kind of fall into setting, right? Because we get a lot about setting. And remember, setting is not just the actual physical place, but it's the time. It's those elements like that. And then characterization, right? So we get a lot about characterization, particularly Luther's characterization. We have a limited omnipresent view that lets us into Luther's thoughts and frame of mind. So I want you to look back onto your list of what we talked about, our statements. And I want you to think, what can I add in here that are some facts and events that I need to basically be sure is in my summary? What has to be in my summary so that I can write a good summary? All right, so just take a note if you want to highlight in a different color the things, or if you just want to make yourself a couple of notes of the key facts and key events. So think about plot. What has happened in the plot? What has happened with characterization? And what has happened with setting that we really need to have in order to write a summary? And let's take about 3 minutes to do that. Second. So I'm going to share with you a summary writing cheat sheet, because what this allows us to do is we're going to get a base summary, and then we're going to be able to come back in later after we wrote a summary and provide analysis, okay? Because that's the main thing about literature, is that we need to be able to analyze. So the essential elements that we need for this particular summary, and sometimes it's going to be different, okay? Sometimes we're going to be looking at something that is completely historical context, and so we're going to have some historical context in our summary. But for this particular summary, we need 3 things. We need plot, we need characters, and we need setting. So we need the highlights of the plot, the beginning, the middle, the end. So what are my plot highlights? What's my beginning? Airport gate. And what would I want to make sure that I included in that 1 to 2 sentences? Crowded, and what else? Blair leaving. Blair leaving. Yes. Okay. Middle. Chips, right? Okay. So we could provide the exigence there that Nora wants to go to the store, or Nora needs to go to the store. And the conflict, right? That Luther doesn't want to. Okay, and then the end. What's the end? Luther doesn't necessarily want to script Christmas right next yet, but he imagines what it might be like if it wasn't a normal Christmas. Okay. So those are our anchors, right? Okay, so if we imagine that as like the first sentence of our summary is setting up that the highlight of the plot, that here's the beginning, they're at the gate. All right, then I'm probably going to go ahead and go in here and I'm going to introduce some characters. So what does my audience who's never read this before, what do they need to know about Luther? He's grumpy. What's his relationship to the other people? He's the dad, okay? And he's the husband. How does he feel about Christmas? Doesn't like it. He does start to hate Christmas, so I think we can say he hates Christmas. All right, Nora, who is she? What's her temperament? Emotional. Okay, she's a mom, right? She's the wife. How does she feel about Christmas? Do we know?
I think she's positive about
She likes it traditional.
How do we know?
Well,
It doesn't tell us, right? What do we know? What facts do we know?
Mom stuff to make things.
She likes pistachio and white chocolate to make the luncheon. What else? What about Blair?
she wants her daughter.
She wants her daughter home. Okay, what do we know about Blair? She's the daughter. She's going to the Peace Corps
for a year.
for 2 years. She's coming back next Christmas though.
Maybe like,
Okay. She's leaving the nest, right? Okay, that's all we really know about. We also, if we were going to be really particular, we would notice that she's pretty. She's 23. We can have lots of inferences about that, but we don't need to. And then Christmas becomes a character, doesn't it? Okay, so what do we know about Christmas?
makes everything crowded.
We know it from Luther's perspective, right?
People make a big deal out of it.
Okay, and Luther just thinks it's what?
A waste of time and money.
He thinks it's a waste of money. Stressful, crowded. Okay. All right, and then we need the highlights of the setting. So where are we?
Airport,
Airport, where else?
flowers,
Car,
chips,
chips,
um,
the district, which is like where all of that shopping area is, which we can infer is part of the setting that's kind of in a cityscape, I guess,
we need to include like the winery and
We don't need all of that, do we? But we could say that they go to Chips, which is situated in some kind of cityscape where there's other little shops around it, trendy shops, that it's cold and it's raining, right? Okay. And that everyone else is all about Christmas time, right? So how you put these things together is up to you. You might want to have a completely chronological ordering of your summary. That's one way to do it. You could also have it be character driven. You could be like, we're introduced to Luther and Nora, who are dropping their daughter Blair off at the airport. It's Christmas time. We get a look into their lives where there's a lot of tension between the two of them. They're upset. Mom's upset. We don't really know if dad's that upset, right? We can't get a pulse on there. We can only see that dad's really frustrated. Now, if this was an analytical summary, we might want to go in and say, dad is probably actually really upset that his daughter's leaving and he's taking it out on Christmas, right? But that's analysis. I don't want any analysis. I just want straight summary, okay? So in your Google document or on the assignment today, I have a document that's called summary or analysis. And what I want for you to do for this here is I want you to first post your observations. So the stuff that you wrote into your Word document, I just want you to copy and paste that into this. And then I want for you to write a summary for me, okay? Now, some people will write just one paragraph and that's fine. Some people will write multiple paragraphs and that's fine too, okay? All I want is that for you to give me a summary of what you think would be an adequate, factual summary of what you just read, okay? And that is all. Any questions that we have?
So we like take the whole document.
Just copy and paste it. So just hit Control A and then hit Control C and then hit Control P into the that. Yep, you got it. All right, and then when you're done, turn it into me. I'll give you some feedback on it, okay? And you'll get 100. All right?
so you wanted all the stuff from the document and he wants to make a separate one with the summary?
I know you can put it all into that summary or analysis document that I have right there because we're going to come back to that later. So I just want you to go ahead and have it all in one place. And then I also kind of want to see your thinking. So that's why I'm having you post show me what you generated as terms of your lists on your own Google document.
Like when I copied and pasted,
Mhm.
it's like this and it's like coming out the bottom.
That's okay. I will still see it. And if you want, you can just create a new slide. So if you see up here, if you just right click and you hit new slide, you can just post more stuff into that. All right. Any other questions, y'all? Okay, good job. All right, see you on Friday.